Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Elephant in the Room. And today we're just going to switch gears a little bit and speak to the tens of millions of people that find themselves without employment today. So we're going to talk about, hey, I just lost my job. Now what? And I think, it's something that a lot of people are wrestling with. And if you're not wrestling with it now and you're lucky enough to be employed, there may come a season where you're going to have to wrestle with it. So I think it's a topic that we've all faced at some point in our journey and may face again. So it's worthy of some airtime. So, with that, Shana, I'd kind of like to start with you because you work quite a bit with our candidates, at various stages of the process. And, what are you seeing in the market that successful candidates are doing that lead to a relatively quick journey back to employment or to the next, employment gig?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think that a huge factor to someone's success is their responsiveness. And it sounds super simple, but if you're hard to reach or you're not responding, especially to someone like a recruiter or a consultant that you're working with on a search, then it's going to make it that much more difficult to make sure that you're the right person for that position. Anything that you can do to expedite the process, have a fresh resume ready, do your back research. Don't just rely on these people to keep you informed, but actually do your part to make sure you're stepping into any interview prepared. Those are the main two things that I see candidates that rise to the top quickly. They're extra responsive and they are ready to go whenever an interview is offered to them.
I think the thing that you hit on that really resonates with me is preparedness, right? I mean, I think finding a job, finding the perfect job, just finding employment in general, it's not a passive pursuit, right? It's active engagement, active networking, active effort, purposed, intentional, focused, and if you're not doing that, if you're not taking it real seriously, don't be surprised that the desert season endures for a period, right? Jorge, you're in the market every day, speaking with candidates, speaking with employers. What do you see out there?
Well, I fully agree with the two comments that both Shaina and you, Mike, have done before. But I mean, responsiveness, preparedness, I would add to those to be flexible. These days, I mean, we have been talking about the gig economy, where some companies are going to offer you projects instead of full-time jobs, and I mean, sometimes we need to step out of our comfort zone and to evaluate other alternatives that maybe a few months ago were out of our comfort zone, and now we have to start to consider other alternatives. That would be my first piece of advice.
Yeah, I think it's a great comment. So, a lot of it just depends on your situation, right? So if you happen not to have a sense of financial urgency and you can be a little bit more selective and you can pick your shots, that's a little bit of a different scenario than needing to put food on the table tomorrow. And so a lot of times, you don't have the luxury of seeking that perfect position. I mean, I can remember when I was real young, early married, my son was just born and I lost my job. I was loading trucks at night. I was coding websites in the morning. I had 3 jobs until I could niche myself back into where I wanted to be. But, at that stage of my life, I didn't have the resources to kick back and just kind of shoot resumes here and there. I mean, I had to go get 3 or 4 jobs while I was figuring out where I was going to land in the next opportunity that I wanted to be in. So I think a lot of times, especially when you're a senior executive, there's a tendency to, I'm gonna have a period of transition. I'm gonna step back. I'm just gonna recharge my battery, and I'll get engaged again 4, 5, 6 months down the road. I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I mean, if I'm unemployed, I'm working on whatever the next opportunity is day one, while I'm recharging my battery, right? I think, that's a better path to plow down. Rue, what do you think?
So I have a mixture of reactions as I hear. I think
Yeah.
the one thing that comes to mind, and I think this comes to my generation, if you find yourself in a position where you're looking for work, especially in any form of professional services, is don't sit back and expect it to come to you. Nobody owes you a job. And I think it's something that we need to say it out loud. And sometimes it's hard to hear it. You need to go out there and get it. And you need to be knocking on doors. And one of the things that this crazy situation that we're all living through in the world has also made the world a lot smaller. And to knock on some doors has become easier. So if you ever wanted to invite somebody out for coffee just to have a conversation, now it's a lot easier because they don't have to leave their home. You're inviting them to a Zoom conversation. So you just get creative, but don't expect it to just come to you. You have to go out there and get it, knock on as many doors as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think a lot of people have a real misperception when it comes to their network, right? So a lot of people have a database, a lot of people have a list. Not a lot of people truly have a network. I mean, if you forget about the networking aspect, you have a list. It's only a network if you network. And so I think you need to get out there and really engage that network. And you don't have to just be obnoxious. You don't have to, touch everybody that you know and say, hey, I need a job. But you do need to engage, and you do need to open dialogues, and you do need to invest into relationships and people, while you're pursuing that next opportunity. And the best opportunities typically come from, your own efforts, or something out of your network that's been referred. I mean, I'm curious. I know the stories, but Rue, how did you find into growth?
How did I find? Through a text message? So it was pretty random. I ran into an old coworker, and we weren't even talking about working or me looking for a new opportunity. And he just kind of mentioned, "Hey, I need someone that needs this type of talent. Like I need this type of talent for a role that doesn't even exist. We don't even know what we're going to call it yet, but I need this specific skill set." And I remember telling, well, I kind of know it. And I always have my options open. And that conversation ended there. But it was someone that I was close to. And then 2 weeks later, he just sent me a text message from Mentor. I was like, hey, I got the position approved. Do you think you want it? And I wasn't looking, but it was one of those things that initiating the conversation and just talking to people that even if it's not about having your options open, but just being top of mind. For him, I happened to be top of mind when the opportunity became available here at Enter Growth. So I was the first person he came to. And I know we have very similar stories with many team members here.
Yeah. Shayna, how about you? How did you find us?
Well, I created a LinkedIn profile for the first time as I was transitioning out of the Air Force, and put that open to opportunities thing on. And then Dan Myatt, your son, reached out to me, and I think he might have been looking because he was also an ROTC instructor at one point in the Air Force, and so we probably had some overlapping connections. But he just messaged me, and it was one of the first messages I think I received on LinkedIn about a job opportunity. And after, responding and talking to him and then talking to Tony, I was like, yeah, Enter Growth sounds like the place I want to be. So it was just a matter of being responsive on LinkedIn.
Jorge, how about you?
This is for me, it was much more a well-organized thinking process. Maybe my corporate career was coming to an end. Maybe I had done, I wouldn't say all, but I mean, I had done almost all, and I wanted to have a different career path. I was really illusionated. I have this dream of creating a company, cooperating with a bigger company like Into Growth internationally, and lead that company in Spain and Portugal from the very beginning. And I made a well thought research. I identified what were the very best headhunters in the world that were not yet in Spain, or were not doing very well in Spain. And then when I found Into Growth, I knew that it was Into Growth. I just started to talk to you, to Jaco, to the rest of the team, and I knew that I wanted to work within this organization because of the purpose the company has, the mission, the vision. So I felt really quickly identified with what we are doing today. And unfortunately, I mean, we got, when we were studying launching the company in Spain, this COVID-19, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy of the change I have done with my career. So it's I wasn't expecting this question though.
No, it's awesome because, in the 3 stories that you shared, we had somebody, an outreach through somebody in their network, a cold outreach on LinkedIn, and Jorge, you found us through your own research. So 3 different paths, right? 3 different stages of career life cycle, 3 different roles within the organization. So I guess the thought that I want to share is there is not any one size fits all formula, but it's kind of knowing what you want to do, being open to exploration, and then actively engaging, putting yourself out there, having the courage to open up dialogue. And that's what a lot of people miss. They just don't take that next step. They're kind of behind an insular wall of some type, and they don't put themselves out there. I mean, let's talk about LinkedIn as an example. I mean, arguably probably the biggest B2B platform for job seekers. Not a typical job board per se, but a really good environment for professionals looking for work. Any advice to people about what they could do on LinkedIn or other networks that may help them?
From my end, I think the number 1 tip I'd say for LinkedIn, don't treat it like every other social network. It's not about having as many friends as possible on that ticker, but rather fostering every connection. Like, I know many individuals that may have 500 plus on LinkedIn, and there are some that might have 100, but they can really take advantage of that 100, whereas that other person probably doesn't really know 450 out of the 500 they may have in their network. So rather focus on fostering relationships if you can, even if it is when somebody sends you a request for a connection, try to initiate a brief conversation. Start connecting and having a dialogue with these individuals, because you never know what opportunities may present themselves. And oftentimes it's not even an opportunity about a potential job. It may be another way of bringing value to your current employer, another way of connecting dots 6 months down the line. You never know what you may encounter, but start the discussions with every connection you receive if possible.
Yeah, I love the comment about adding value. I think, my general rule for networking is help some more, help again, help until it hurts, and then help some more, right? And I think if you're giving of yourself to others, if you're willing to kind of lean in and help other people on their journeys, you don't do it just to bank political capital that you can call on later. I mean, that's a byproduct, but that's not the motivation, right? If you're just out there helping people, it kind of comes back around. And, that's how you build a really valuable network, because if all you do is take from your network, you're not going to have a lot of people that are going to want to really help you. But if you're giving to the network, those people are definitely going to want to help you, right? They'll work to help you. And so I think, that's what most people need to do, is just figure out, hey, how can I unlock value in my network and help others while I'm on that journey? How do I build relationship and foster trust and engender confidence? I mean, those things are critical, and LinkedIn's a great place to do that, right? I mean, people have asks out there all the time. Maybe reach out and help somebody. Not a bad strategy. Shana, what do you think?
I like when I can look at someone's profile and see the types of, I guess, actions or accomplishments that they've had in their role. So a lot of time you'll see there'll either be no information under a role, which is like, okay, I have to understand what this organization is or whatever that level is. Or you'll see like an overall, this is what the job is kind of description, which isn't it's helpful, it provides some context, but it doesn't show me like what you've been working on or what you've been doing. And so if I have a question or like I want to dig into that experience to maybe learn from you or to align you with another opportunity, it helps to know what kinds of projects you've been working on, what kinds of results you've achieved and stuff like that. But LinkedIn is a great place to make sure that the best parts of your resume are making it out into the world.
Yeah, I mean, what people want is evidence of success, of attributes, of characteristics. That they're looking for, something that they can process to validate, who they believe you are. And if you're not giving them that information, chances are they're just going to blow right by you, because guess what? Recruiters out there are busy. They're not going to spend lots of time, trying to put a puzzle together. They're going to look for a puzzle that they can understand, right? And so I think a lot of people, examine good LinkedIn profiles, and the evidence is all over the place. It's in their title, it's in their header, it's in the imagery, it's in the professional body of work they've posted, it's in their career descriptions, it's in their endorsements. It's, it just oozes the type of thing that a recruiter can latch on to. Now, a lot of recruiters don't use LinkedIn, or they use it peripherally, but it is a place to be found, right? It's definitely a place that you want to be seen. But there's many, many, many platforms. And the trick is you want to have that billboard working for you 24/7, 365, multiple mediums, multiple modalities, but consistent messaging, consistent branding, that's your calling card to tell the market not only who you are and what you've done, but where you want to go. And if you don't tell that story, you're leaving somebody else to tell your story for you, and it usually doesn't end well. Thoughts on that?
Well, I was just, you jogged my memory, but some candidates that we've come across in the past have their own website. So you might discover them somewhere or online by searching, for them, and then see all of this curated information about them that they get to decide how you see it, how it's laid out. So that is, I think, a really clever way. And when you think about moving into the future, maybe someday we'll all need our own websites. Who knows?
Yeah, well, it's interesting when I was diligencing Rue, when he was applying for the job, and we were hiring creative talent, right? I was able to go out and see his work in the marketplace, right? And I could see, a really great eye for design, a really artistic perspective. I could see, different levels of creativity. And if you've got that professional body of work, show it off. It helps, right? I don't know. Thoughts on that, guys?
I agree. And I think I'm a little bit different because my hat is marketing and design. So I get to be creative all the time. Yeah. But I also think in this time, if possible, it's a great time to start diversifying your skill sets. And it's funny to even say, because even as I see my role, like marketing and design, and I feel like even what we do is starting to shift from being a graphic designer to being a content creator. Like nowadays, at least for the type of work that I do, it's important to understand not only graphics and photos, but now you have to understand audio. You have to understand video. There's many different mediums that you're creating content on and you need to share. So coming in saying, hey, I'm a graphic designer and I only do design. If somebody else is competing for that position and say, hey, I'm a graphic designer, but I have an understanding of video, I can speak that language, they're already putting a few pegs above you, make it a little easier for the decision maker to pick them over you. So now this is a great opportunity to start expanding beyond your skill sets and pick complementary skills that are only going to add to what you do.
You know, that is such great advice. I mean, the goal isn't to blend in, it's to stand out. You know, the goal is not to be a part of the noise, it's to rise above the noise. And you do that, you know, in business, we always talk about competitive value propositions, unique value propositions, right? You have to have that as an individual looking for a job. You know, you don't want your resume to look like 9 million other resumes. You don't want your LinkedIn profile to be bland. I mean, you want it to pop, but you want it to pop with all the right messaging. And so whether it's your resume, your social media, you know, I had on our internal kind of communications tool this morning, one of our teammates was asking about taking a business writing course. And I responded, hey, take all the courses you want, nothing wrong with that, but start writing now. You know, don't wait. Start writing, you know, develop your voice, develop an edge, develop a point of view, put it out in the market. The market will refine your writing, you know, but I think if you want to do something, do it. Certainly you can study it. Nothing wrong with that at all, but do it and do it now. You know, thoughts on that?
Well, I like that those advices because, for example, for me, LinkedIn is a very good opportunity to sell yourself, but from a positive perspective. I mean, it's a way, it's a medium where you can share what has been your experience, your studies, and what you have done, and then it's a very good place to start building your personal branding. Because at the end of the day, you have to, you talk about building your voice. I mean, what is your opinion regarding whatever? No? So, for example, in N2 Growth, we offer outplacement programs. And something that when you are trying to find a job is, first of all, you have to recognize that you have lost the job and that you need to find a new job. And that is going to be a journey. That's going to require some process because maybe it's the first time that you have been during your career without a job. And now you have to start a full-time job that is going to be to find a new job. And therefore you need to, for example, to know you better, to have a very good understanding of your self-awareness, who you are, what are your strengths, your SWOT, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. What would you like to do? Because these days, I believe, I'm convinced that the people that are going to be really good are the people that are really passionate about what they do. Yeah. The people that really want to crack it, to do it very well, to do the extra mile. I mean, these days it's not enough to just to cover the 9-to-5 job or whatever. You need to have that passion to be able to win in a very complex environment, right? So sell yourself in a positive way, talking about your experiences, your capabilities, your abilities, build your personal branding, and then maybe pick and choose your target. What do you want to do? I mean, in all these spaces, where is the space where you are going to really highlight? And that for me is a very good opportunity these days.
Yeah, you know, it's that, I don't know, self-awareness or just intrinsic knowledge of who you are and who you want to be when you grow up, right? I mean, one of the things that I ask people, I said, tell me what you do. And they give me a title. And I said, no, tell me what you do. And they repeat the title. What I'm looking, I don't care what your title is. I care about the impact that you make, the contribution that you make, how you help a team be better, how you lift those around you, right? I don't care what your title is. You have to be able to articulate what you do in a really compelling way, and do it with story, do it with real world examples. And the personal brand thing that you mentioned, Jorge, is no small thing. I mean, that's one of the ways in which you stand out. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to build a personal brand, but it better be authentic, because you're going to get back what you put out there, right? So I think, having it really be well thought out, be very consistent with who you are and who you want to be, that's going to attract the right people to you, and it's going to allow you to have the right conversations. Let's pivot for a second and talk about interviews. So, once you're in an interview, what is it that makes a candidate stand out to you? I mean, open question, dive in.
I think the first thing that I notice is someone's energy level.
Yeah.
And, if they come in and they make me feel excited about them, then that's going to be just so much easier to pay attention and stay engaged, versus someone who is maybe making me feel tired listening to them.
Yeah.
So I think being well rested, getting enough water even that day, and being just energetically ready is really important.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I mean, if you're trying to figure out if the person you're speaking with can actually fog a mirror, that's a problem, right? So you've got to bring energy and confidence as well, right? Not arrogance, not narcissism, but confidence and courage, and engage, in a way that makes people think. And I think the two ends of the spectrum in interviews, the underprepared candidate or the over-prepared candidate, I think both are wrong. If you're over-prepared, you're giving canned answers rather than engaging, right? I mean, how many times have you been asked in interviews or heard other people ask, tell me about your biggest weakness? And out comes the canned answer, right? And it's just I hate that question, but if somebody were to ask me that question, I'd say, how long do you have? I got a bunch of them, and then I would say, but what I am is self-aware enough to recognize most of them. And I've put things into place to turn many of those weaknesses into strengths. And let me give you a couple of examples, right? I mean, but I would have a conversation. I wouldn't say I have no weakness, or I would manufacture an artificial weakness. I would tell them about me and what I do with my weaknesses, and how my weaknesses will actually benefit them and benefit those around me, And so I think you have to understand yourself, and then be able to authentically communicate that in a way that says, hey, I want this person on my team, and I think, I don't know, skill sets and competencies, they're table stakes. At the level that we interview people, they all look great on paper. They all have gravitas. They all have pedigree. They all have a track record. So what's going to make you really stand out? It's all the stuff that maybe isn't on the resume that I want to dig into, right? I mean, what do you guys think?
May I make a pause and place a question to all of you guys? Because I understand that when you have a candidate that is underprepared, maybe it's because he's not interested enough. Maybe it's because he doesn't have the energy level to find out what is the industry, how the company is doing, or whatever. But you mentioned that you don't like either the people that are over prepared, and why is that? Let me understand why to be over prepared could be
Yeah.
an issue as well.
Preparedness is a good thing. Being over prepared, I think, puts you in a position where you're not always in the moment. And so what I want is kind of a free flowing conversation that tells me that the person is prepared, but they're not just pulling out factoids and they're not engaging, right? They're just, they're name dropping, or they're citing something on the Q's and K's, or they've dug into this about the business or that about the business, just to show that they're researched. But if there's no applicational value to that research, if it's not relevant, if they can't make it kind of unique to how they're going to contribute or make an impact, I don't care that you read an annual report. I don't care that you read an article. I care about who you are and what you think. And if you've done that, great. But if somebody gives me a canned soundbite, I mean, that's just like chum in the water for a shark, right? I'm just going after that, because I want to dig in and I want to see if there's any substance behind it, right? Does that make sense?
Yep, it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. I think so. What's the most interesting interview question, Rue, that you've ever had? I know you worked at a company that was kind of famous for interesting interview questions.
That was a tough one, man, because they did funny things, which it was interesting, and not everything was an interview. And that is something actually that I admire about them. That oftentimes you will be getting interviewed and not realize you were being interviewed. It wasn't once or twice. We were like, cool, let's go to Starbucks. And we started walking, grab a cup of coffee. It was like, cool, nice chatting with you. Just want to let you know you just interviewed for this role. And that was normal. So that's something that I admire that they did. But every now and then and I don't want to say that. I think there were some leaders that, depending on how long they've been on the organization before, will give you the kind of answers like, what is your biggest weakness and what are you doing to fix it and stuff along those lines. But for the most part, it was always exciting. And from a design perspective, I remember having to create a 3D iPod out of thin air just to prove that I can do it. And it had to look like a realistic photo. And that was the main question for the interview. It was like, once you prove me that you have the skills to make one of these out of thin air, and it looks like it was a photo, now you can sit down with the leadership team and be considered for the role. So that was interesting also.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, we live in a kind of a COVID-19 world right now, which kind of limits some of, what I used to like to do. But, I would like to go out with a spouse and a significant other, right? Because, you want to figure out who somebody really is, engage them in that setting, right? Because there's somebody else there kind of holding them accountable and, and just, it's a different measure, right? Go out on a golf course and put yourself in a competitive setting with somebody and see, if they skull a shot, an approach shot to the green, and then they throw their clubs in the water, probably, maybe a little red flag, right? But if they can have some humor about, the bad shot, or it just makes them focus more, or so, but put people in settings where you have the chance to see who they really are, because interview settings aren't real. They're not real. They're contrived on both sides. It's kind of a forensic expedition on both sides. But I like to see people in their natural environment where I can, because it helps me get an understanding for, who they really are, what's important to them, what they're really going to bring to the organization. I can read a resume, but I will tell you, resumes in my mind are a little bit useless. I mean, I'll look at it just to gather some data points, to build into the interview. But, and I may see some things on there I like or I don't like, or things that I want to probe, or, but you are not a resume. You are a human being. You hire the entirety of the human being, and that's where the exploration needs to occur. Make sense?
Yeah, it actually reminds me to bring this up, and this is going to tie back to some of the points we made earlier.
Yeah.
Something that I see often is that there'll be many people that will send in their resume through like our generic contact form on our website with like a templated message that they're copy and pasting into every search firm they've seen, and they just probably Google search firm or headhunter or something, and they started pasting this in. 90% of the time, not intentionally, we probably won't read them and go in depth into your resume because it comes across as something that's not sincere. But if you can utilize something like LinkedIn and find somebody that works for us and reach out to them directly and at least create a bit of a warm introduction and make it a little bit more personal, there is a higher chance that your resume is going to make it in front of someone, as opposed to just throwing it. It's like literally, it's like in my mind, it's like throwing it out the window and hopefully somebody catches it. That's what that's what it is for me.
Yeah, it's kind of like a post and pray strategy, right? It's just it's a spamming campaign, and that's I don't know if people do that because they're lazy, because they don't know any better, because somebody told them it was a good idea, but that's not engaging. That's spamming, and it's not going to get you anywhere. I mean, I think we talked about this early on. The important thing is to figure out what you want to do and who you want to do it with. And then that should lead you to kind of a targeted universe of opportunities. And then think about how to intelligently engage with people that can help you land, in that targeted universe, right? And that's where the thinking comes into play, the creativity, the courage, the networking, but just spamming the world. I mean, it's just, basically what it's going to do is close doors on you, because maybe had you made an intelligent approach or a creative approach or a thoughtful approach, maybe that would have led to a conversation. But when you do the antithesis of that, that just closes doors on conversations, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, what's coming to my mind is like a lot of online dating versus like actually meeting someone through your network or something like that, where like you might actually have something in common or a connection that exists outside of the romantic realm. But finding a job is kind of similar. Like even in the interview process, you want to kind of bring your whole self so that if they don't like parts of it, then that's not the right place for you, right?
Yeah.
Like find a place that's going to embrace all the pieces of you.
Well, see, that's a great point. I mean, I think so many times when you're a candidate interviewing, and I'll be honest, I haven't had a lot of interviews in my career as a candidate because I've been kind of an entrepreneur and a founder, owner, chairman, kind of a guy most of my journey. But I've interviewed literally thousands of people, right? And I'm always amazed that if you have the opportunity to engage with somebody that can give you a position that you want, that you're not interviewing them. I'm amazed at how many people will just answer questions and, the clock expires and, they're off, right? But they didn't really spend a lot of time peeling back the layers on me, my company, my team, my organization, my vision, my value, and if I'm not being interviewed by a candidate, I'm probably not going to be interviewing them for very long, right? It's got to be a two-way exchange, and I think a lot of people really miss that part of the equation, right? It's a conversation, it's a dialogue.
Getting back to the interview setting, and now that we are in the COVID restrictions, for me, I mean, a regular interview could get you a very good idea of what are the technical or even the business skills or any candidate, right?
Yep.
But when it comes to the personal and leadership skills, for example, when you try to get another a non so standard space, like you were talking about before, like a golf course, or in a, I would say, for example, to drive in the traffic of a big city, like in New York or in Madrid. How do you react to something that you don't like when you have to brake suddenly or whatever? Because it's going to tell a lot about what is the person you are. For example, if you are having lunch, how you treat the people that are bringing you the food to the table, if you treat them with respect, or if you are having dinner with your special ones or whatever, if you are treating them well or not when something doesn't go your way. Because I mean, everybody is very nice when things go your way, but when things don't go your way is when you are going to realize how these people are going to react. And if they react in a not very nice way because they are missing a path or whatever, a 1.5 meters path, what is going to happen if they miss a sale or whatever? No, right? So I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I think, we talked about the energy level, the courage, the engagement, the interaction, the bi-directional conversations. But at the end of the day, I want somebody that wants the opportunity more than I want them to want the opportunity, right? I mean, I'm looking for somebody that really wants to be all in. And I can remember like my first adult job, when I got out of the military, I probably didn't have the right qualifications for that job. In fact, I know I didn't meet any of them. But I kind of wormed my way into an interview. And, as we went through the interview, there was some chemistry and some rapport and some trust. And at the end of the interview, I just said, look, I know that I'm probably not the typical candidate that you are looking for. I know that I don't meet your criteria, but I will absolutely crush this role, and I will outperform any other candidate that you're ever going to talk to. And I'm so confident of that. I will work the first month for free. You can get to see what I do and see how you like me. And I got a job that I wasn't qualified for. I just kind of, I said, look, I really want this role. I really like the company. I want to be on the team. I can contribute, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. Give me a shot and you won't regret it. That story turned out well on both sides. They took a risk. I took a risk. It worked out well. But sometimes you have to do things that are a little bit unconventional to get a position that you want to get, because there's nothing wrong with reaching up, right? There's nothing wrong with shooting high, with aiming high, and competing against people that on paper, you're probably punching, up, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but most people won't even take that shot. So, I guess my best advice is give yourself that opportunity. Only you can grant yourself that opportunity or take that opportunity away from yourself by not trying. So I think, knowing who you are, what you want to do, where you want to go, and then give yourself a shot at it. Worst thing that can happen, somebody says no, retool, try again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we even have it at the executive level. So, we see, chief executives, right? Or CXOs, very, very successful, very, very documented people that have a lot to offer. They're trying to go into a different industry or to a different segment, or maybe they're going to play in a different way. And they still have mountains to overcome. So resumes are great. Track record is nice, but you got to want it. You got to show that you want it. And you got to convince somebody that if you get it, you're going to deliver. And that's a whole lot more than a resume, I guess, is the message that I want to communicate. Rue, you were going to say something.
No, the one thing that highlighted, and I think I think it's a cliche nowadays, but I think it still makes sense to say it, is get comfortable with the word no.
Yeah.
Like you can't escape it. And I think that as humans, we kind of have this fear of rejection that just happens. And especially, and I see it a lot because that's something that I had to overcome. And I think my parent kind of influenced a whole lot of this. It's like, oh, go to school, you graduate, you're gonna get a diploma because you have a degree, you're gonna have a great job. Guess what? Nowadays, that's not true. Nowadays, a college degree is the same as a high school diploma probably 20 years ago. And we have to be comfortable with it. You have to stand out. You have to get comfortable with maybe going to 30 different interviews. I may be exaggerating, and many of them may say no, but I guarantee you that if you got to go to 30 interviews, chances are you're going to get to a few yeses in there. But if you only interview once and take that no, and that no defeats you, that is a whole lot harder to overcome than getting used to, hey, I got 3 no's, but I got this one yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Ru. And I think the other thing too is you can't. So many people just, there are people out there that kind of, hey, you are what your track record says you are. Yeah, to a point, but that track record may not always transfer to the next role or to the next company or to the next team. It's a lagging indicator, right? It's something that you want to pay attention to, but it's not. There's no certitude in that. They're lagging indicators, and what I'm interested in is, what are you going to bring to our client or our company? If we're working for a client. So a great example. We recently had a very high-profile general counsel search. Fortune 100 companies, senior legal officer in the enterprise, and the best candidates understood that it was about more than legal acumen, right? Because they all had that. They all had that in spades, right? But were they good leaders? Did they have, good business acumen? Could they be a good team player? Could they, more than just perform in the functional work streams? It's what are the other value adds that they bring to the table, right? Because if you're competing for a certain role, and Ru, you touched on this early on in the conversation today, right? Everybody applying for that position, whether it's a board member, a CEO, a CXO, or somebody down into the bowels of the enterprise, everybody applying for that role, you can just assume that most of them will have the requisite qualifications, right? So, it's the things that make you stand out and separate you from everybody else that's applying that matters. So you have to figure out what that value proposition is. And then you have to figure out how to communicate that in everything that you do, in your online persona, in the interview, in the resume, in that professional body of work. I mean, you have to ooze that, and it can't be slick. It has to be authentic, right? Because what a lot of people don't realize is they want to have a perfect interview. But as an interviewer, all I'm thinking is, do I want to let that person into my organization? Do I want to work with that person on a day in, day out basis? Are they going to elevate the team, or are they going to drag them down? Are they going to unlock some new hidden value, or is it just going to be more of the same? And again, resume lagging indicator, I want to get inside of here and inside of here, and that's what tells me about a person. Does that resonate with you guys?
Yeah, I was thinking about your comment before about taking an amazing opportunity, and this I like to follow Richard Branson, because the way he leads his company, the adventurers he is, the way he celebrates doing kitesurf, his 50th anniversary or whatever. And he said, related to your comment before, Mike, if somebody offers you an amazing opportunity, but you are not sure how you can do it, say yes, then learn how to do it later. So
Yeah.
it's about the same
Yeah.
idea, is to take courage and
there's a desire there. So look, as executive search, as an executive search firm, we have very technical standards for interviews, right? I mean, down across every, T dot every I, drill down, and so there's a very technical process that our team goes through to vet candidates, and it's at different levels, right? It's exhaustive, it's comprehensive, it's rigorous. But in our most senior searches, I'll usually talk to the finalists oftentimes before they'll talk to a client. And so I've got this whole litany of history, from my team, and I go through that. But I kind of set that aside, because when I get to the point of going to the CEO or the CHRO or the nominating and governance committee for one of our clients and recommending somebody, they're not looking for me to recite their resume. They're looking for me to give them insights and guidance and counsel. And you can't do that without really knowing somebody deeply. So there's the technical side. So if you're out there looking for a job, you're going to have to go through the technical hoops. You're going to have to create the iPod from scratch, that Rue did, right? So you're going to have to get there. But all that does is punch your ticket to that next level. Now it gets really hard, because now we're exploring the depths of the human being, right? And not only are they a fit, but how will they add? How will they stretch? How will they make that organization better, whether it's our company or our client companies? And so as a candidate, you have to understand that path and prepare for that path, but do it in a way, again, that makes you unique, different, compelling, interesting. Show them that you're smart, show them that you're courageous, show them that you're curious, show them that you're creative. Most of all, show them that you care, that you give a rip, right?
Yeah.
That you're not just here to maximize W-2, because, look, everybody wants a nice job. Everybody wants a job that pays really, really well. But if that's the only reason you want the job, I'm not interested. I have no interest. I guess I'm curious about one thing. Think about the candidates just in the last several months that you folks may have touched, and tell me about the candidate, not a name, not a company, not a role, but why that candidate really jumped out at you. Jorge, you've probably interviewed more people in the last 30 days than you can even count. But, of those people, what was an individual that really stood out, and why? What made the fit so perfect?
All right, so this is a real story. We were working for a client of us. We were doing several positions at the same time. We were doing a general management position for Spain, another general management position for Portugal. And I found this candidate, and obviously, among many other very good candidates, he called my attention for several reasons, not only because of his career path, not only because of his preparation, but particularly because of his positiveness, his curiosity, many things that you were mentioning before, right? And at the end of the day, maybe because the future boss of this position was looking for a slightly different profile, some other person won the process. But we started to build a very good relationship, and this was one person that I never met before, so he was completely new to me. And we started to talk about businesses, he started to talk about people, we started to talk about how to develop the teams. And one day I said, well, we are building the team in Spain and in Portugal. What do you think about? And this guy is going to join our team in End2 Growth Portugal. Why? Because, for example, when I started to talk to him about the people, the way we work, our purpose, things like that, he said, Jorge, I'm going to catch a plane. I'm going to fly to Madrid. I want to see the project with you. I want to have lunch with you. Obviously, I went to pick him up to the airport. we spent 8 hours together talking about what would you do if you were leading into growth in Portugal? How would you work together? And I mean, if everything goes as I expect, he will be part of our team pretty soon, in a couple of days. So it's a real story.
Yeah, and see, yeah, it's the energy and it's the desire, right? It's the willingness to put yourself out there and take a risk and commit, and engage, right? To show that, the position matters enough to that person that he would go through all of those hoops that you didn't even really require of him, right? He's showing that kind of proactive entrepreneurial spirit that we want here and that our clients want, right? I mean, I think that's, I don't know. I guess one other thing that I would say to candidates is understand what the employer is looking for in the role. Not just what it says on the job description, not what it says in the job specifications, but what are they really looking for in terms of contribution margin, in terms of what you add, what the expectations are, what the future looks like, because you don't want to be part of a legacy-based organization. You don't want to just kind of like backfill a role that you can't really go anywhere with. I mean, what you want to look for is somebody that's looking for kind of that next level, next generation talent that can really help move that organization forward. So as a candidate, I think you want to make sure that you answer all of the requisite questions well and thoughtfully and authentically. But you also kind of want to stretch the mind of the person that's interviewing you and say, hey, I'm curious. I understand the role as it's envisioned today kind of focuses on this. But can you help me understand where you would want somebody that sits in that chair to take that role? And other areas and maybe adjacent or non-adjacent spaces where this role could add more enterprise value. Right? I mean, start stretching the mind of the person that interviews you, because if they don't stretch, that tells you a little bit about the organization, right? But if they start ideating with you or they start giving you, different paths or different opportunities, and they're really engaging with you at that intellectual level, that's a pretty good sign, right? So again, remember that interviews are two-way. And you don't have to take a job just because you interview, and just because you interview doesn't mean you're going to get the job, but it is a pursuit, and it's a lofty pursuit. It's a meaningful pursuit. So I guess my closing message is go on the journey, go on the pursuit, pursue it rigorously, intentionally, and land the opportunity that you want by really separating yourself from the myriad of other candidates that are out there pursuing the same opportunity. So anyway, I hope this has helped. And if you've got questions, reach out to us or reach out to other people in your network. Don't wonder why you're not getting a job. Figure it out and go get the job. So with that, we'll see you next time. Rue, you want to close us out?
Sure. Thanks again, everyone who's watching. If you got any value today, please share it. And if you haven't, please subscribe or follow us on whichever medium you're experiencing this. Catch you again next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.